Marcus Reed never wanted attention. He wanted quiet skies, fresh desert air, and a view no one else could afford. After 20 years designing ecotech homes and a single lucky patent sale, he could finally live anywhere. But instead of Beverly Hills or Aspen, Marcus bought land just outside the sleepy Oak Haven Estates in Arizona, 3 acres of high ground, no neighbors, and no HOA oversight. At least, that's what the county plot map said. His first mistake was believing Karen Westbrook would honor a map. Karen ran Oak Haven's HOA like it was her private kingdom, 60, single, and ferociously territorial. Karen had made a career out of crushing anything that didn't fit her vision. She wasn't elected president anymore, she was just never unseated. Residents feared her. Realtors whispered her name, like a curse. Her clipboard had ended more backyard patios than city code enforcement ever did, and then came Marcus. Rolling up the ridge with excavation crews, hauling solar panels, concrete mixers, even cranes. One day the lot was nothing but dust and ocotillo. The next, it was a buzzing construction zone. Karen didn't knock on his door. She waited until his team was unloading imported stone for a terrace wall and then stepped directly into the job site, clipboard in hand. "You can't build that here," she said. Flatly, Marcus looked at her over his sunglasses. "I'm not in Oak Haven. I checked the boundary records." Karen's smile didn't reach her eyes. "We recently filed for annexation. Your property is now included. All construction needs HOA approval." Marcus didn't blink. "Then I suggest you contact my lawyer." Karen leaned in closer. "You can fight it or you can play nice. But I've buried bigger egos than yours." She turned, marched back to her golf cart, and disappeared down the hill like a general leaving the battlefield, smug and certain. Marcus wasn't rattled. He'd dealt with zoning boards, patent trolls, even city councils. But none of them worked like Karen. Within a week, he received a cease and desist letter, not from the county, but from the Oak Haven legal team. The letter claimed Marcus owed $147,000 in retroactive violation fines, citing unapproved structures, noise disturbance, and terrain damage. The problem, Marcus wasn't even in the HOA's legal boundaries. At least not according to his county paperwork, but Karen had friends. Friends in real estate, law enforcement, even building inspections. Suddenly, Marcus's deliveries started getting delayed. Construction permits were flagged. Anonymous complaints poured into the city. Something deeper was happening. And then, a local title clerk sent Marcus a tip, a quiet email with an attached file she accidentally stumbled across. It was a set of financial statements from the Oak Haven HOA. The numbers didn't make sense. Landscaping companies with 6-figure payouts. Duplicate contracts, a contractor listed under 3 different company names. All registered to a vacant strip mall in Nevada. The HOA wasn't just overreaching. It was laundering money. That night, Marcus called Camilla James, a ruthless property rights attorney, known for her scorched earth tactics. After one glance at the records, she told him flat out, "You're not in a zoning war, you're in something criminal." By morning, Marcus had installed perimeter cameras, hired a private investigator, and paused all work on his land. He wasn't building a house anymore. He was building a case. What he didn't know was that someone else had already noticed the HOA's financial trail. A federal agency monitoring wire transfers flagged a pattern, and that same week, an unmarked car rolled slowly past Oak Haven's gates, a man in sunglasses, snapping photos as he made a quiet call back to Phoenix. The D had just entered the game, and Karen, she was too busy preparing her next HOA lawsuit, to see the storm heading straight for her door. 2 weeks after Karen Westbrook's thinly veiled threat, Marcus Reed's land was still under siege. Construction had halted. His contractors were getting harassed with late-night calls from concerned neighbors. County permits kept disappearing from the online system, and delivery trucks mysteriously rerouted. But Marcus wasn't focused on the surface attacks anymore. His attention was underground on the HOA's finances. And what he was starting to uncover didn't just reek of petty corruption. It smelled like something more organized. Camilla James, his lawyer, was running background checks on every Oak Haven board member. 3 of them shared bank deposits from the same landscaping contractor. That contractor, according to her investigator, didn't even have a website, just a mailbox in Laughlin, Nevada. And then came the email. It was brief. No name, just a subject line. Don't respond. Meet at the Java barn. 3 p.m. Come alone. Marcus could have dismissed it as a prank, But something about it felt different. The email was routed through multiple encrypted servers. The language was clean, precise, no fluff. At 3 p.m. sharp, Marcus entered the Java Barn, a tiny brick cafe off Route 14. The place smelled like roasted almonds and burnt espresso. He spotted him immediately. Mid-40s military cut, cheap, sunglasses indoors, sitting in the back like someone watching every exit. Marcus approached cautiously. "You sent the email." The man didn't look up. "Sit." Marcus hesitated, then sat across from him. "You've stirred up a nest," the man said. "That HOA is dirty. Real dirty." Marcus folded his arms. "Who are you?" The man pulled out a small black badge case, flipping it just long enough to flash the seal. Then he closed it and pocketed it again. "They're moving money," he said. "We've been tracking a shell corporation laundering cartel funds through real estate associations, and Oak Haven lights up like a Christmas tree. We had a wire trace hit on their accounts 2 weeks ago." Marcus blinked. "You're telling me Karen is part of a drug ring?" The agent smirked. "She doesn't have to be, she just has to be greedy. Somebody offered your HOA board a chance to boost their maintenance fund. Karen's name's on 3 wiring authorizations to a company tied to a laundering network we've been following for months." "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus asked. "Because you're the first person who didn't roll over. You dug, you're smart, and you're not on their payroll." Marcus frowned. "I'm not a whistleblower. I'm just trying to build a house." The agent leaned in, voice low. "You're sitting on more than a house now. You're sitting on evidence. You keep digging, we'll keep watching. But if they suspect you're working with us..." He didn't finish the sentence. Just stood up and left. Coffee untouched. Marcus sat there, stunned. The HOA wasn't just mismanaged, it was a front. And Karen, clipboard queen of the neighborhood, was somehow tied to a pipeline of drug money. Back at his property, Marcus reviewed every file he had. Camilla had flagged an odd real estate transaction. A property sold twice in the same month. Both times through Oak Haven's Special Improvement Fund. $1 million difference in sale price. No repairs listed. And that money. Gone. Transferred to an account in Mexico. Marcus knew one thing. If he made one wrong move, they'd come for him. The next morning, Karen was back. This time with 2 uniformed deputies. "You're trespassing," she said, motioning to the workers setting fence posts. "This land belongs to Oak Haven now. Your permits were revoked. These officers will assist you in leaving." The deputies were unsure. Marcus calmly walked over, handed them a printed copy of the original deed, followed by his county exemption paperwork. Then gave them the kicker, a signed statement from the county zoning officer himself. The taller deputy turned to Karen. "Ma'am, unless you have a court order, he's not breaking any laws." Karen's face twisted. "He's defying the community." The deputy shrugged. "That's not a crime." She stormed off, red-faced, screaming into her phone. Marcus didn't even flinch. But that night, his power was cut. His water lines were tampered with. A dead coyote was dumped at the edge of his drive. This wasn't about zoning anymore. It was intimidation. Marcus grabbed his phone and called Camilla. "We're past legal. This is something else. And I think it's about to escalate." The wind howled across the ridge as Marcus sat inside his half-built home. Lights flickering from the backup generator humming in the cellar. It was 2:17 a.m., and he hadn't slept. Not since the power cut. Not since he found the dead coyote, stinking at the edge of his property line like a threat wearing fur. His phone buzzed. It was Camilla. "I've been digging into those property transfers. There's more. The same Shell landscaping company did emergency erosion repairs on 6 Oak Haven homes. Half those homes haven't had a shovel touch their yards in years. Someone's using those properties to move money or something else." Marcus rubbed his temple. "They're using the neighborhood like a smuggling grid." Camilla exhaled sharply. "Worse. I think they're burying something under those yards. Maybe drops, maybe product. I've got 2 trail cams facing my western fence," Marcus said. "I'll check footage in the morning." But morning came early. At 3:03 a.m., his motion sensor tripped. Camera feed lit up his phone. A figure, with a flashlight and a shovel, creeping around the rear slope of his lot. He watched them kneel by the rock outcrop, then begin to dig, not frantically, but like they knew exactly what they were looking for. Marcus grabbed his flashlight, a steel baton, and headed out without a second thought. He crept through the brush, boots muffled by dust and twigs. The figure didn't hear him approach until Marcus hit the flashlight beam right on their back. Don't move, Marcus ordered. The figure spun, shielding their face. It wasn't Karen, it was a teenager, maybe 17, wide-eyed, and shaking. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, I just needed to know if it was still here. Marcus lowered the light a little. Still here? What are you talking about? The kid wiped his eyes. My brother used to live here. He buried something here before he got arrested. I thought it was just cash, or I don't know. But then he called from prison and said not to tell anyone or Karen would find out. Marcus narrowed his eyes. Karen knew your brother. The teen nodded. He did landscaping for the HOA. Got paid under the table. Said they made him hide things in flower beds. Drop stuff off at certain houses. Marcus's heart dropped. What kind of things? I don't know. But he said, someone named Lobo would come if anything went missing. My brother was scared. Man. Real scared. Marcus took a breath, then offered a hand. You got a name. Ethan. Ethan, you're going to tell me everything? And then I'm getting you out of here. They didn't find anything buried that night. But Marcus knew one thing for sure, Karen's HOA had deeper roots than anyone suspected. Back inside, Marcus texted the agent from Java Barn. He didn't bother being cryptic this time. He wrote, there's a kid. He says his brother was forced to bury drops on HOA property. One of the houses is mine. He got a response 5 minutes later. We're watching Lobo. Don't interfere. Keep your cameras rolling. And protect that kid. Marcus didn't know what was coming. But he knew something was already in motion. The next day, Ethan showed him an old work phone he'd found in his brother's box, cracked screen, but still functioning. In the texts were addresses. HOA, homes, codes, dates. Some went back 5 years. Camilla reviewed them and immediately froze. Marcus, one of these addresses is Karen's. Marcus gritted his teeth. Then she's not just turning a blind eye, she's part of it. At that moment, a black SUV with tinted windows parked across Marcus's property gate. A man in a suit stepped out, looked straight at the security camera, and made a throat-slashing gesture with his fingers. Ethan's face turned pale. That's him, that's Lobo. Marcus didn't say a word. He just walked inside, locked every door, and called the one person he hoped hadn't given up watching. The DEA agent. Your ghost just showed up, Marcus said, and he's not here for a cup of coffee. The man called Lobo didn't knock. He didn't say a word. He simply stood outside Marcus's property line like a warning, arms crossed, sunglasses hiding everything but menace. Then, without a sound, he returned to his black SUV and drove off. Ethan was shaking. That guy, he's not HOA, he's not local. My brother said he came from El Paso, only when someone messed up. Marcus didn't like coincidences. Lobo showing up right after Ethan's discovery wasn't a scare tactic. It was a message. Stop digging. Marcus wasn't the kind of man who backed down, but even he knew he was up against something bigger than petty fines or a HOA president. This was organized, funded, and dangerous. And Karen. She was either a fool or a willing player. Camilla wasn't convinced it was the former. She's signing too many checks, Marcus. Real ones. You don't sign off on 6-figure landscaping invoices from a company that doesn't own a lawnmower unless you're in on the game. It was time to strike back. Quietly. Marcus reached out to his contact at the zoning office. A mild-mannered guy named Derek, who owed Marcus a favor for helping with a family trust case last year. Derek confirmed that Oak Haven had filed no formal annexation request with the county, meaning Marcus's land was still legally exempt from the HOA. Want the kicker? Derek added. Karen's been pushing for retroactive enforcement of HOA rules on your property, even tried bribing the assistant recorder last month. That was it. Marcus had the motive, the cover-up, and now, a money trail. But none of it mattered unless he could prove Karen knew about the criminal operation, or better yet, participated in it. So Marcus made a move that would turn the heat up. He filed a formal fraud complaint with the state HOA oversight board and attached the financial irregularities Camilla had compiled. He sent a copy straight to Karen's inbox. Not even an hour later, she was pounding at his gate. I know what you're doing, she screamed. You think you can undermine this community with your paranoia? Marcus didn't flinch. I sent facts. Karen. If you're clean, you've got nothing to worry about. You don't understand what you're playing with, she hissed. There are people involved who don't care about your smart house or your little lawsuits. You'll get swallowed, Marcus. And who exactly are those people? He asked quietly. She paused, just long enough for the mask to slip. I'm warning you, she snapped. Back off. Then she stormed off, trembling with rage. Camilla, watching the footage from Marcus's security feed, nodded. That's fear. She's been threatened. My bet. Lobo's not just here for you. He's cleaning house. That evening, Marcus reviewed Ethan's old work phone again and noticed something odd. A text thread with someone saved as KWA message read, drop done. Backyard tiles lifted. You sure she won't notice? And the reply. She's the president. It's her house. Marcus stared at the screen. Karen wasn't just connected. Her own property had been used for drops. He called the DH agent. I've got texts proving Karen's backyard was a stash point. You want to catch someone? You need to raid that house. The agent responded in under a minute. We've been waiting for the last piece. That text is it. The plan was immediate and surgical. By morning, the D would be knocking on Karen's door hard. But before that, something strange happened. At 3:43 a.m., Karen's backyard camera, which had been hacked weeks earlier by Marcus's IT guy, showed movement. Two figures in black, digging furiously under her tile deck. A silver case was lifted. Then a whisper. One of them panicked, dropped a phone, and they both fled. Marcus retrieved the footage, paused it at just the right frame, and zoomed in. One of the men was Lobo. The other, a face Marcus had seen before, Councilman Rick Darden. The same man who greenlit Oak Haven's shady emergency funding grant 6 months earlier. The corruption ran even deeper than he thought. Marcus forwarded the footage to the DE. Along with the phone ID he pulled from the dropped burner device. An hour later, the agent texted one line. We move at dawn. Stay inside. This is about to go loud. At 5:12 a.m., Marcus was already awake, staring at the horizon through the tinted glass wall of his partially finished living room. The mountain sky was barely beginning to glow when he heard the first whoop of sirens, distant but getting closer. Then the convoy rolled in. Black SUVs, armored vans, and a pair of unmarked tactical trucks swept into Oak Haven like a stormfront. Flashing lights lit up the sleepy cul-de-sac, and within seconds, D agents in full gear surrounded the property at 442 Willow Trace Drive, Karen Westbrook's house. Karen didn't have time to panic. One agent knocked. The others kicked in the door. Marcus watched it all unfold from a live stream on his laptop. His trail cams had been repurposed into an external surveillance grid, every frame feeding into a secure channel. He watched as agents swarmed the backyard, pulled up the decorative tile papers, and yanked open a hidden hatch, one no landscaping blueprint had ever shown. Out came not one, not two, but 5 steel crates, marked only with strange coded symbols. The agents opened one on site. Inside were sealed vacuum bricks. Not cash. Fentanyl. Enough to supply a cartel. And enough to put someone away for life. Karen was dragged out moments later, screaming in disbelief. I didn't know what was in those crates. I thought it was fertilizer. You have no idea what they made me. Her voice was cut off by the slam of the SUV door. Marcus didn't smile. He felt no victory. Because Karen wasn't the only one going down, and the night before had left one critical clue behind. The burner phone that Lobo dropped while fleeing Karen's backyard had been cracked by Camilla's forensic contact. Inside were names, dates, coordinates, and a map, a digital outline showing for stash locations. One had been Karen's property. Another was tied to a vacant HOA-owned parcel. And the third was Marcus's own land. More specifically, the northeast slope where he'd originally planned to dig a wine cellar. Camilla's voice was tight with tension. They buried something on your property before you even bought it. This whole war, Karen started the lawsuits. The annexation, it wasn't about your rooftop or your solar panels. It was about getting access back to what they thought was still buried there. Marcus's stomach dropped. That morning, he grabbed a shovel and headed toward the slope. Ethan followed, silent, carrying the same flashlight from the night they met. They dug for 20 minutes before Marcus's blade struck something hard. Metal. It was another crate, smaller than the others, but locked tight. Marcus pried it open. Inside was a plastic-wrapped bundle of documents, a Glock pistol, and tucked beneath a thumb drive, marked with nothing but a red sticker. Ethan looked at it, then at Marcus. That's not drugs. That's something worse. Camilla examined the files on a secure laptop that afternoon. They're financials, she said. Names. Offshore accounts. Bribes. Look at this. There's a payment to Rick. Darden for $2.1 million routed through an NGO in Belize. This isn't just HOA corruption. It's a money laundering scheme that spans at least 5 states. She paused, scrolling. Wait, Marcus, your name's on this. Marcus froze. What? It says you authorized a $1.5 million transfer to the same account in Belize last year. I didn't. I've never sent money offshore. Camilla nodded, which means someone used your identity. Likely forged it, or had access to an account tied to your name. Marcus backed away from the screen. They're going to make me the fall guy. And he wasn't wrong. That evening, as the D continued to search Oak Haven and question board members, Marcus received an unexpected visitor to federal agents, but not from the same team. These weren't DE. They were from the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Division. One flashed his badge. Mr. Reed, we have some questions about your connection to several flagged wire transfers. We'd like you to come with us for questioning. Marcus blinked. You think I'm part of this? The agent didn't answer. He just opened the car door. As Marcus stepped into the vehicle, Camilla shouted from the porch, "Keep your mouth shut until I get there." The door slammed, and the SUV rolled down the mountain road. Marcus wasn't just in the middle of the story anymore. He was about to become the main suspect. Marcus sat in the back of the Treasury Department SUV, staring blankly at the blurred lights speeding past the desert highway. The air conditioning blasted against his chest, but it did nothing to cool the fire boiling in his gut. He wasn't in handcuffs, not yet, but the silence in the vehicle felt more suffocating than chains. The agent beside him, a man named Denton, finally spoke. You've got money moving through accounts in your name that tie directly to shell organizations. The D flagged 3 months ago. You really expect us to believe you had no idea? Marcus didn't answer. Not until they arrived at the Phoenix Federal Annex and ushered him into a private interview room. He leaned forward across the metal table. I sold a patent for $200 million. I have no need to move money through Belize, Panama, or anywhere else. If my name's on those transfers, it's forged. You're chasing the wrong guy. Agent Denton folded his arms. We're not chasing you, not yet. But let me ask you this. Who has access to your banking information, Marcus? That question triggered a flood of thoughts. His financial planner Camilla's office. His ex-business partner. No, not them. They were airtight. Then his eyes widened. The title company. Denton leaned forward. Go on. When I closed on the land 2 years ago, the company handling the deal was a boutique firm in Scottsdale. I thought they were clean. I remember now, they pushed hard to finalize everything fast. No back and forth, no renegotiations. The wire instructions came with a confidentiality clause. Denton and the second agent exchanged a look. What was the name of the agent who handled your file? The second agent asked. Her name was Alina Westbrook. There was a beat of silence. Denton raised an eyebrow. Westbrook, as in Karen Westbrook. Marcus nodded slowly. The second agent exhaled. That's her niece. She's been under passive surveillance for 6 months. We couldn't tie her to the stash houses. But now, with the title connection and this new financial activity, Marcus didn't need them to finish. He'd been set up from the start. The HOA war, the annexation, the legal ambush, it was all a smokescreen. While Karen stirred chaos, her niece slipped Marcus's clean money through the cracks and laundered it through offshore channels, and Marcus, unknowingly, became the perfect scapegoat. At that moment, the door burst open. Camilla stormed in, blazing with fury. You so much as file a formal charge, and I'll have a federal injunction on your desk by midnight, she snapped. You don't have a case, you have a puzzle missing all the corner pieces. You want Marcus's help, you don't drag him here like a criminal. You partner up. The agents weren't thrilled, but they relented. Camilla laid down a condition. Marcus walks free and continues providing information with full immunity. The agents agreed. But the clock was ticking. Alina had disappeared. Karen had clammed up. And Marcus's name was already circling online. Forums tied to criminal finance tracking. He was being framed in real time. Back at his property, Marcus checked in with Ethan. The kid had been hiding at Camilla's ranch in Sedona, and his paranoia was growing. Rightfully so, someone had driven past twice that morning. Same car. Black Charger. No plates. Then Ethan dropped a bombshell. My brother used to mention a name. Not Lobo, someone else. He said she was the real boss. Called her La Dama. Said no one ever saw her face. Only her signature. Marcus felt a cold chill crawl up his spine. He opened the thumb drive again and examined one of the forged documents. The final signature line read, A. Westbrook Ladama. Wasn't Karen. She was the one hiding behind Karen, the one pulling the strings. The woman who handled the real money and made sure her aunt stayed loud and obnoxious to keep eyes away from the books. L.A. Dama was Alina. Marcus turned to Camilla. We don't just need to find her. We need to expose her, publicly. Make it impossible for her to disappear again. And Camilla already had a plan. We don't go to court. We go to war in the media. That night, Marcus sat in front of a camera. He told the whole story. The shady HOA fines, the forged accounts, the trail of property laundering, the betrayal. By morning, the video had gone viral, over 1.6 million views, but not everyone watching was a federal agent or a curious homeowner. Some were part of Alina's network, and they didn't like attention. The video worked. Marcus's expose had set the internet ablaze. Major news outlets started calling within hours. Reddit threads dissected every second. The HOA message boards went silent, all except for one chilling comment. Posted from a shadow account, you should have stayed quiet. Now someone else will be. At first, Marcus thought it was an empty threat, but when Ethan stopped answering his phone, the gravity hit hard. He called Camilla in a panic. He's not at the ranch. His location stopped pinging around midnight. Camilla didn't waste a second. They took him. Marcus's hands trembled as he pulled open the drawer with the backup trailcam SD cards. He'd installed a hidden one facing the road to the Sedona property. Within minutes, he found the footage at 12:47 a.m. A black SUV with no plates pulled up to the edge of the driveway. Two masked figures emerged. One approached the house. The other covered the rear. 10 minutes later, both returned, one of them shoving someone into the back seat. Ethan was gone. Camilla's voice on the phone was They've moved into desperation mode. That means you've got them cornered. But it also means they'll do anything. Marcus didn't reply. He was already moving to the garage where his drone equipment was stashed. If they had Ethan, they had to keep him nearby. Transporting someone across state lines would expose them. He launched his drone over the ridge and fed it through a pattern based on known HOA stash properties. He remembered something Ethan had said. My brother always said the stash houses had unfinished basements. Big, empty ones. Some of them weren't even on the blueprints. One address stood out. 91 Maple Echo Lane. HOA, owned and vacant for years due to foundation issues. It had been flagged by Camilla during their financial sweep but never searched. Marcus rerouted the drone and brought it low. Thermal imaging lit up the interior. There were 3 heat signatures. Inside. One was slumped, the others were standing, and one of them was holding something long. A weapon. Marcus immediately called the D contact, relayed the address, and uploaded the footage. We're 20 minutes out, the agent confirmed, but they might move him. If you're closer, I am, Marcus cut in. But I'm not waiting. He jumped into his truck, punching the gas down the winding ridge as the sun broke over the mountains. The roads blurred under his tires, as his mind raced. If they hurt Ethan, none of the legal wins would matter. Karen, Alina, Lobo, they wouldn't just go to prison. Marcus would make sure they were buried there. He parked a block away from the house and approached on foot. The place looked empty, abandoned shutters, overgrown yard, no lights. But his drone's thermal told the truth. The basement light flickered. He made his way to the back. Found the storm doors half cracked. A security system blinked red, but it had clearly been disabled. These people weren't worried about alarms. They thought they owned the system. Inside, he moved fast. The basement was concrete, unfinished, and silent until he heard a muffled voice. Ethan was zip-tied to a pipe in the corner. His face was bruised, but his eyes lit up when he saw Marcus. Just as Marcus lunged to cut the ties, a voice echoed from behind him. You really are stubborn, Reed. Marcus turned. It was Alina. No sunglasses, no disguise, just calm, polished fury. I gave you every chance to walk away, she said. Do you think this ends with one viral video? Marcus stepped between her and Ethan. You're finished. Alina, the DEA's on their way. Alina laughed. You don't understand. I'm not running. You are. Behind her, Lobo emerged from the shadows. Gun raised. But before he could take a step, the back door burst open. DEA agents poured in, shouting commands. Lobo turned to run, but it was too late. A beanbag round from a tactical shotgun knocked him to the floor. Alina raised her hands slowly, smirking like she'd planned every second. Ethan was freed. Marcus was pulled back to safety. As agents dragged Lobo and Alina into custody, one turned to Marcus. "We found something else." They handed him a flash drive, pulled from Alina's bag. It wasn't like the others, it was labeled, Contingency. Willow Ridge Camilla examined it within the hour. On it were schematics, voice memos, and a backup recording of a conversation between Karen and Alina. They weren't just laundering money, they were planning to build a front company on Marcus's land to wash tens of millions more. They had started targeting him 2 years before he ever moved in. The $200 million war. Marcus was never caught in the middle. He was the prize. 3 days after Alina and Lobo were arrested, Marcus Reed stood in the same place this all began, on the edge of his northeastern slope. Staring out over Willow Trace Ridge, the chaos had mostly settled. Karen Westbrook had been denied bail and faced a stack of federal charges so tall her clipboard couldn't hold them. Alina Westbrook was now the DEA's star target in an interstate conspiracy case involving laundering, property, fraud, racketeering, and even cartel affiliation. Councilman Rick Darden had resigned. Just hours after news of his connection to the Maple Echo safe house made the headlines. But even as agents swarmed, Oakhaven and news crews camped outside for daily updates, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing. Because that contingency flash drive, the one pulled from Alina's bag, hinted at more than just a front company. It referenced coordinates, specific coordinates, and they pointed directly to a corner of his land that had remained untouched since the day he bought it. Marcus, Camilla, and a team of federal investigators met at the flagged location at sunrise. They brought ground-penetrating radar. Within minutes, they had a hit, a metallic signature buried under 6 feet of reinforced concrete. Whatever this is, the agent said, they didn't want it found. They dug for hours, and then they found it. A steel vault, bolted to a slab foundation, disguised beneath an old irrigation cover that predated Marcus's purchase. Camilla looked at Marcus. "You sure you didn't build this?" He shook his head. "I've never seen it." They cracked it open. Inside was a hard case, sealed, fingerprint locked. When the FBI tech finally pried it open, the entire circle of agents fell silent. Stacks of documents, original deeds, sealed ledgers, blueprints, and, at the very bottom, a dusty banker's box filled with bearer bonds and offshore trust instructions. Each tagged with the same alias, La Dama. But that wasn't the part that sent the chill down Marcus's spine. The top document was a notarized contract dated 3 years prior, signed by Alina Westbrook and an anonymous party. The sale was for a parcel of land totaling 3 acres, sold to a holding entity listed as WTR, Management Inc. WTR, Willow Trace Ridge. Marcus leaned over the page. His signature was on the contract, except he hadn't signed it. The whole sale had been fabricated. Alina and her co-conspirators hadn't just laundered money through HOA properties. They had used Marcus's future home as collateral for a massive underground financial network. They never expected Marcus to actually buy the land legitimately. He was never meant to move in. He was supposed to be scared away, find out, or worse, Camilla whispered. This is bigger than a neighborhood scheme. They embedded a full-scale criminal operation beneath a gated community and used real property as a shadow economy. One of the agents shook his head in disbelief. This isn't just racketeering. This is a real estate cartel. By week's end, the D had raided 3 more HOA communities across 2 states. Each one had ties to Alina's network. Property records were seized. Over $87 million in laundered funds were tracked back to fake maintenance contracts and board renovations that never happened. Marcus's story had ignited a firestorm. He wasn't just a homeowner anymore. He was a whistleblower. Camilla arranged for full federal immunity. Ethan was entered into witness protection. His brother, still incarcerated, had offered to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence. And Marcus was finally left with something he hadn't had in years. Peace. But before he moved on, he made one final move. He purchased the now defunct Oakhaven estates at auction, every last property that had been seized. He turned the clubhouse into a community center for youth in recovery. He planted new trees where Karen's infamous topiary used to be, and in the exact spot where she once stood to lecture neighbors about grass height and fence stain. He installed a bronze plaque, For every HOA that overreaches, there's always one neighbor who digs deeper. The press called him a hero. The FBI called him a lucky break. Marcus didn't care about either. He just smiled, sipped his coffee, and walked back to his rebuilt home, the one no one could take from him anymore. Because this time, the paperwork was real, and Karen. She watched the whole thing unfold on a TV bolted inside her 8x8 cell.